From the dark side of the moon to the light side of the news, from the mysterious east to the civilized west, the news, the whole news, and nothing but the news. The American Broadcasting Company presents the subtly titled and 100% fictitious Comedy News. Tonight, from the far-flung corners of the globe, our imperturbable correspondents are on the go. Chief of our Washington Bureau, Mort Saul. Chiefs of our New York Bureau, Bob Elliott and Ray Goulding. Chief of our Department of Urban Affairs, Dick Gregory. With the latest trends in classical music, Professor Peter Schickley. And with the day's doings in the world of sports, Spencer Quinn. And tonight, a special report from Joan Rivers. Good evening, I'm Andrew Duncan, and I'll be bringing you all the news from the far-flung corners of the globe.
And I'm Kenneth Mars, and I'll be bringing you more news.
Hello, I'm Fanny Flagg, and I'll be bringing you news from the world of women along with Anthony Holland.
Offering you my humble comments and critiques on the disparate worlds of arts and leisure along with...
Marion Mercer, along with Wally Weather, hoping it's not going to rain on your parade.
And now the news.
It's all yours, Andrew.
Thank you, Ken. In Washington, the President's Commission on Drug Abuse, after personally experimenting with marijuana, not only recommended its legalization, but absolved the Russian war debt and exonerated John Wilkes Booth as well.
The Vietnamese government's attempt to convict alleged communist conspirators resulted in a hung jury this afternoon, and President Thieu is reported to have ordered his men to keep on hanging juries until a verdict of guilty is achieved.
President Nixon's friend, B.B. Rebozo, held a press conference today and admitted he has a silly name.
Philip Grosham and Stella Curtin, who perform as human cannonballs for Ringling Brothers Circus, were married today. After the ceremony, they were shot into a nearby motel room.
A freak weather accident occurred in Kansas City today during an outdoor performance of Swan Lake. Ballerina Lori Valley had just gone into a spin when a tornado touched down in the center of the stage and screwed her 15 feet into the ground.
Recent crackdown on streetwalkers who have actually been using street locations as opposed to the customary motel rooms, undercover agents have taken to the streets and making on-the-scene arrests. With the cooperation of Vice Squad officials, we here at Comedy News installed a hidden camera across the street of an undisclosed location to show you the carrying out of one such arrest. At this very moment, Agent Tom O'Reilly and the prostitute, who will appear on your screen momentarily, are unaware they're being photographed. Now, you see Agent O'Reilly and the alleged streetwalker obviously coming to some point of agreement. She's exiting now. Now he is exiting. Now you can see they're both out of sight. And supposedly the arrest will be made at this point. Now let's watch. Well, it should be any moment now. Actually, what we're waiting for is the officer to emerge, and you should see the arrested woman in handcuffs. At which point she will then be taken to the police precinct where she will be most likely booked and charged with soliciting. Well, what Officer O'Reilly was probably doing there at that moment was making sure that his evidence was right and that the young woman, the alleged streetwalker, is indeed just that. Now, a premature arrest, of course, would, by the alleged lady of the evening, so to speak, would oftentimes be dismissed in court, so they have to be very careful on those things.
Oh, yes.
Like evidence and so on. Anyway, we're going to go to a commercial now, and we'll come back later and see how that arrest is ensuing. Let's return now to our hidden camera and see how Officer O'Reilly is progressing with his arrest of the alleged streetwalker. The camera's still holding on the hedge.
That looks like nothing doing there.
at least in front of it.
Well, prostitutes are a dime a dozen, but I'd give $1 million to know who grew that hedge.
That's nice and pretty. Anyway, we'll return to that scene later, and if we get any word, we'll let you know.
Love to have a hedge like that down on the swine ranch.
Oh, yes. Fanny, I believe you have something for us?
Beautiful thing.
Indeed I do, Andy Pandy. Abusive signs and other marks found on a figure recently unearthed in an Egyptian pyramid led scientists to believe that they have discovered the world's first unwed mummy.
Well, Andy, here's a story right up my very own life. I've written it up here. Just check off all of the details. You know, knee-jerk liberals think that you can make laws that'll force people to get along together. But I have an example right here of how it has to happen if the melting pot is going to work at all. My wife, Mrs. Kenneth Mars, and myself belong to a little country club, nothing much. We have a bar, we have a golf course, annual duck kill, rabbit clubbing. That's just about it. Well, last month, our club decided to take a big step and get at least one member of the Jewish persuasion. And that isn't as easy as you might think it is. Because your average Jew is a very clannish person. And he doesn't like to go anywhere that he isn't wanted, except maybe where there are a lot of them, like New York, Los Angeles. But we voted, and it passed 6-5. And we found one couple who wanted to join, Mr. Harry Gold and his wife, Ida, or one of those names. Well, we decided to do it up brown, right, and have a welcome dinner for the Golds, because the Jewish race, as you all know, is a very proud people. They go back thousands of years. They take care of their own, though, I'll tell you. You never see a Jewish beggar on the streets, do you? No, sir. So the girls got together, and they planned a great big affair. And they went out and they got a big picture of Sandy Koufax to hang in the dining room. I want to tell you that we had a wonderful time with the Golds. We had matzo ball soup. Well, it was matzo ball soup, but it wasn't really the real thing. It was frozen soup. The girls made the dumplings out of Bisquick. And we told the master of ceremony to drop all of those nose jokes out of the monologue. We sang Jewish songs. We sang that Haver Nagila and Rosie, You Are My Posy. We talked about Al Jolson a whole lot, reminisced a lot during the evening. I just want to tell all the bleeding hearts out there, you can make all the laws you want. But if you want to make a Jew feel at home, you could do a whole lot worse than to follow what the girls in our club did. Because I want to tell you, at the end of that evening, irregardless of what you hear about Jews being heartless, there were genuine tears in Harry Gold's eyes.
Oh, that's lovely.
A lot of action in Washington today, so now we're going to the chief of our Washington Bureau, Mort Saul. Mort?
Yes, just as a footnote to what Ken Mars was pointing out about the integration of various ethnic blocks in our society, which we only call upon usually every 4 years to vote as blocks, and we ask them to integrate again, which of course is, can't be legislated, as Ken pointed out. The very director of our Washington crew is of Jewish extraction. And I don't know who extracted him, but he's of Jewish extraction. His father happens to be my dentist by coincidence, Dr. Shapiro, and his son is our director, Bob Scott. Anyway, to continue here, I see that crime is up 47% in the White House. And, of course, we're still feeling the shockwave of the inaugural, one of the gayest nights that Washington has ever had, but under control, because, as you know, President Nixon is a controlled man even when he's overjoyed. In the recent unearthing of some letters auctioned off by Charles Hamilton, Professor Albert Einstein wrote to Freud. He said, man can determine how we got here, but he can't determine why we got here. I'd say that President Nixon is an excellent example of that at the inaugural, if you'll think about it. Anyway, the inaugural festivities were great. Meyer Davis played for dancing. There's a little nostalgia there for the college people. And the president's cabinet is all college people, City College, College of Dentistry, people like that. And then it ended up with a funny sketch in which Jack Webb arrested Frank Sinatra. They played symbolic roles. Now, to turn to a more serious area, dissent. There were a lot of people running around with signs to embarrass the president, as many as 60,000. And they all had various signs. You know the stuff, 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to get out of the war, which is iambic pentameter and so forth. A little bit simplistic and non-sophisticated, I would say. If you're going to oppose, you should learn to articulate your viewpoint, of course. One guy in front of the White House had a very large sign, and it said, President Nixon has carried on a continuity of Lyndon Johnson's policies as opposed to the promise he made to change Lyndon Johnson's policies, and this is a direct contravention of his oath of office. It was a large sign, and it was windy. The guy was having a lot of trouble with it. So anyway, he was arrested by the FBI, and he's been charged in federal court with passing federal secrets. Now, the other case, Daniel Ellsberg is on trial in the Pentagon Papers case, and I have a picture of Daniel Ellsberg here. Underneath it, it says, I lost my job through the New York Times. And a little later in the program, we have unearthed some papers of how Hitler died in the bunker, for those of you who are interested in nostalgia. And if we have enough time, we'll play our favorite game, trivia. And the question for you to ponder until I come back is, who was president in 1968? See you a little later. Back to you, Lawrence.
Ken, I think you have something.
Our next item has Fanny taking a look at the world of those Eastern religions that are subverting our natural American religious heritage. Yep, there's a new grassroots movement that is capturing the imagination of young people. Karma, Hare Krishna, Jesus freaks. What next? Would you believe Hangarne?
Once again from New York is Ray Goulding, who's standing by with a special guest.
Time for today's Face in the News. And today's face is a red one. It belongs to truck driver Joseph Swanson. Well, Joe, how do you like to have your picture in the paper?
Well, pretty good, but it's not the first time my picture's been in the paper. Once when I was 13, there was some kind of epidemic around, and a picture of me standing on line waiting to get a shot from the doctor made the paper.
Well, now, the picture of you that appeared in the paper, yesterday, that is, was one showing your truck wedged in under the Harvey Township underpass. Was it as enjoyable as the picture you just discussed, the one when you were a kid?
Well, the picture of me standing in front of my truck shows me...
With a perplexed look as you stare at the contents of your truck all over the road?
Yeah, well, I like the one when I was 13 better, really. I was much lighter then and wirier.
Sure.
I look like a jerk in this latest picture.
Would you tell our viewers about your poor height judgment, Joe or Mr. Swanson?
Well, Ray, you know, life is a matter of inches. In baseball, you can hit a ball 1/10 of an inch away from a fielder. A safe could fall out of a building and miss a guy by 1/2 an inch.
That's right, yeah.
Sometimes 3/4 of an inch could be the difference.
Oh, look, I agree. Life is a matter of inches, Mr. Swanson. Right.
Right.
Now then, how high was the underpass, and what was the height of your truck?
Well, the underpass is 11 feet high.
Yeah.
And my truck from the pavement up runs about 27 feet.
Must have been quite an impact there.
Yeah, it's funny the way it happened.
Yeah.
I was approaching the underpass when I noticed the skull on the gear shift stick.
Yeah.
It wasn't screwed on tight. The head was facing the instrument panel.
Oh, and that threw you off, is that it?
Certainly did. Next thing I know, boy, whammo.
Lucky you didn't get hurt.
Well, I was lucky at that. The protection of foam rubber on the dashboard saved me from that. When I hit the underpass, I was thrown against the dashboard and snapped back into the van of the truck.
I see. Well, now, in the picture, Mr. Swanson, you're standing at the contents of the truck, scattered all over the road, and just looking at it.
Looking at them, right.
Would you tell the viewers what you were transporting at the time?
I was transporting a load of office equipment, desks, swivel chairs, filing cabinets, waste baskets, desk sets, desk signs, coat racks, water coolers, all stuff like that.
And the picture shows the furniture all over the street.
Yeah.
Now, I also noticed a man sitting in one of the swivel chairs that was thrown off the truck, and he's got both thumbs, you know, under his suspenders, and he's wiggling his fingers and smoking a big cigar. Do you know him at all?
No, I don't know. He was some wise guy making believe he was an executive, came by. A lot of guys kid around when something like this happens, you know.
Then I also see a man with a feather duster going over your truck, you know, with mock sincerity.
Yes, yeah.
Well, how does your boss feel about all this, Mr. Swanson?
Well, I'm very lucky there. I'm my own boss.
Oh.
So I have nobody to answer to. All the damages I've just paid myself.
Well, you're indeed lucky, Mr. Joseph Swanson. And again, our thanks for being such a wonderful face in the news.
ABC's Wide World of Entertainment. Tomorrow, TV Times with anchorman Roger Grimsby. Guests, Terrence O'Flaherty.
It was a season for cops, sex, doctors, and violence.
Candy Stroud of Women's Wear Daily.
I have news about the private lives of some very public people.
And Robert L. Green of Playboy Magazine.
We will talk about what they don't talk about on talk shows.
Tomorrow on Wide World of Entertainment.
Here's a sad bit of news in the Human Interest Department. After 23 years as a taxi driver, Fred O'Hara had to retire when he lost the use of his gesture finger.
Police arrested a Mr. Robert Fleischer for being under the influence of LSD at Disneyland yesterday. His strange antics came to their attention when he approached Harriet Meeker, a 230-pound Spencer, asking, "Are you a ride?"
I'm a ride. For those of you who just tuned in, earlier we hid a TV camera and we were covering the arrest of an alleged streetwalker by Vice Officer O'Reilly. So let's cut away now and see how that arrest is progressing. Well, there's the hedge again. Obviously, Officer O'Reilly is making sure that he has an airtight case. I understand that no arrest can be made unless money actually exchanges hands. And, well, who knows? Perhaps when we weren't looking, Officer O'Reilly was short of cash and had to dash away for a few minutes while he got some. What kind of a hedge is that, Ken?
I don't know. It looks like it needs a little discipline to me, a little shearing, but boy, it certainly is a wholesome bit of greenery.
I thought I saw
What a wonderful
leaf
duck
move.
blind that'd make.
Did anyone else? Did anyone else see a leaf move that last time? I thought I did.
You saw a leaf move in there.
Yeah.
Well, something may be going on back there, but I really didn't see anything. So.
Well, personally, I think this is a perfect example of why there should not be that many Irish policemen.
Oh.
In the beginning, there was the broom. It was better than nothing. Then came the first vacuum cleaner, the first uprights, and the first canister. They were better than the broom, but not much. And now the ultimate in cleaning convenience, the new Eureka Power Team. 2 cleaners in one, with the suction power of a canister and the automatically adjusting Rotomatic power head to give it the deep cleaning power of an upright. The new Eureka Power Team, the ultimate in cleaning convenience. At last.
And now, over the stadium, the famous Goodrich blimp.
Goodrich doesn't have a blimp. Goodyear does. And since they've done more advertising, it's not too hard to confuse our names. But we believe the best way to keep our name from being forgotten is to keep making tires worth being remembered. And that's just what we're doing.
If you want Goodrich, you'll just have to remember Goodrich.
The Brazilian-American student exchange program suffered a severe setback today when Brazilian military men tried to exchange 6 Brazilian students for a medium-heavy tank.
Now the Scranton Playboy Club was concerned yesterday when 16 of the bunnies failed to pass the rabbit test.
Now, here's our urban affairs reporter, Mr. Dick Gregory. I bet you've got the shiniest Cadillac in town, haven't you, Dick? Right on.
Hello, Dick Gregory, your urban correspondent from the ghetto. Many Americans seem to be upset this week over the cold weather that seemed to be gripping the country, but personally, I like cold weather myself.
because I feel it makes race relations pretty nice. 3 weeks ago, I was in downtown Chicago. It was 21 below zero, and a white drunk walked up to me and said, "Why don't you get on back to Africa where you belong and take me with you?" I was reading the Wall Street Journal this morning, and they seem to be very concerned over the fact that they seem to believe that America is headed into another depression, which won't affect black folks at all because we never came out the last one. We hear everybody in America today complaining about tight money. We didn't know what it was like when it was loose. Of course, the cost of living affects us all, and the cost of living, I mean, can you believe food so high is almost cheaper to eat money? 3 weeks ago, I went shopping with my wife at the supermarket, and when we finished shopping, the clerk figured it up. He said, "That'll be $85. I paid him. He looked at me and said, "Where you want me to put the groceries?" I said, "Just put them in my pocket." Probably the biggest topic of discussion in the black community today is the fact that there are no fallout shelters in the black community, which is very frightening, because if America goes to World War III in the morning and they start dropping them big bombs over here, we got to run all the way downtown. And so because of that, the black leaders next week is planning on going to Washington, D.C. to discuss with the president and officials of the Pentagon about building fallout shelters in the black community. And if for some reason they say they can't afford to build fallout shelters in the black community, then we intend to ask them to give us a 3-day warning. Which means if you whites ever look around one day and see a whole lot of black folks slipping downtown, they just might know something. Okay, back to you, Andy.
Thank you, Dick. Today in Texas, tensions were still high as ecologists reportedly downed their 15th crop duster.
A major garment manufacturer complained today that since the city has instituted its crackdown on porno film houses, sales of raincoats have declined by 40%.
Well, believe it or not, once upon a time was a time when Old Glory had a picture of a vicious rattlesnake on it, and the legend, "Don't tread on me," written right underneath the snake. Hard to believe, isn't it? In a day when any half-educated wild man of Borneo can spit on the red, white, and blue, spit right in Uncle Sam's eye and get away with it. Well, I'm happy to say that that isn't always the case. You take the story of Wilbur Salty Dog Harrison. Wilbur's a tuna fisherman. He's been having an awful lot of trouble with a certain South American country which claims a 200-mile limit in their fishing territory when most of these taco tasters can't even count beyond 10. Well, last year, the south of the border pirates not only confiscated his tuna catch, they made off with his electric wristwatch. They made off with his electric wristwatch and his Pittsburgh Pirate glow-in-the-dark baseball pennant as well. Well, this year, Wilbur is fighting mad, and he's ready for them. He's armed his tuna boat, the Alamo, with 50 caliber machine guns, rocket launchers, depth charges, in case they try to get at him from below. And sure enough, he wasn't out 2 days when those hijackers tried to board him. Well, sir, I wish I could have been there to see it. For Wilbur held off 2 patrol boats and a light cruiser while his wife, Euphoria, shot down a seaplane that was attempting a kamikaze attack on the forward tuna hold. Not only that, Wilbur is really mad now, and he's declared war on that certain country. And there's a rumor that sympathetic Navy men have lent him a Polaris missile or 2. And somewhere on the Atlantic tonight, as America sleeps, one man, Wilbur Harrison, is keeping the world safe for democracy.
Well, I have some news from the world of health. Enoch Wade, who is 119 years of age today, released the secret of his longevity. He said it is all diet. And as a young man, Mr. Wade studied exterminating and discovered that roaches were the oldest living creatures. Enoch's diet consists of crumbs and bits of sugar eaten while crawling along a counter.
Something just came across our monitors regarding our hidden camera and Officer O'Reilly, so let's look in on that. Oh, yes, there's the hedge again. Now, hold it. That seems to be Officer O'Reilly there. Now, no sign of the arrest. Well, let's see. Well, yes, there's the alleged, well, you see as I do that no arrest has been made, so I guess, well, he may be going to pounce any minute here. No, that's not Officer O'Reilly. No, she's going to... Well, I don't know. I guess there's one undercover officer who's going to have a lot of explaining to do to somebody up higher up.
Andy, let's not be too quick, too hasty to condemn nor underestimate our undercover police before all the facts are in on this thing.
Well, we did see what transpired there.
Many times, you see, these girls work in rings. They take their orders from the higher-ups. And it may be that in this case, Officer O'Reilly is after bigger game.
No, I didn't think about that. That's a very good thing to
Well, think about it a little bit.
I can. All right, we'll be right back after these messages. Well, Ken, my face is red. I don't know what to say. I've just been informed that the gentleman you saw in that film was not Vice Officer O'Reilly. We, of course, would like to apologize to the police department and, of course, Officer O'Reilly for that mistake. I understand he was watching the whole thing in Eddie's Four-Leaf Clover Bar and Grill, and he's on his way over there right now to cover the assignment. Unfortunately, we don't have the time or inclination to cover
Well,
that.
at least I'm glad you admitted your mistake. That was mighty white of you.
I think that's terrible. Don't you? I mean, what about Mrs. O'Reilly? Suppose she was watching.
Oh.
I think maybe we should make a personal apology. What do you think?
Well,
I certainly want to apologize to Mrs. O'Reilly and the children and...
the inevitable children.
The dog.
And O'Reilly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago.
Oh, I liked him. Didn't you like him?
He was a very sweet man, right. Anyway, I think, Marion, you got something to do with the weather?
Yes. Wally and I have been just getting scads of letters now that Jack Frost is finally leaving. So long, Jack. Don't forget to write. Right, Wally. And people are writing us to ask when they can get something into the ground. And now that planting season is here, it seems that just everyone has things they want to stick into the ground. Now, just everywhere you look across the United States, green thumbs are twitching, and that can only mean springtime or gangrene. Now, up here in Massachusetts, it was dry and windy, and that means it's turnip time again. But whatever you folks up in Massachusetts do, don't stick it into the ground in a month with the letter R in it. So everybody up in Massachusetts, be sure you check that calendar. Now, down here in Georgia, we had dry and balmy weather today, and that means only one thing to all you Georgia peaches watching. It means radishes. Ripe red radishes, which gives so many people pleasure and gas. Winter radishes deep in their bed, and they'll come up healthy and wealthy and red. Folks, isn't it remarkable how much the weather has to do with things that grow? Now, do you realize that without the weather, the only food you'd have to eat is food that never grows? And since all food grows without the weather, why, most of us would probably starve to death and perhaps die. Now, a sad thought, perhaps, but then the weather has its sober side, too. Now, I've received an awful lot of mail asking me to give marine forecasts. So here goes. Quantico, 49 and raining. Paris Island, 57 and cloudy. But I couldn't find a thing on the halls of Montezuma. Oh, I'm so glad we had this time together. I hope your weather tomorrow is exactly the way you like it, whether you like it sunny side up or scrambled. Back to you, Andy.
Marion, we'll take you any way we can get you. Thank you very much, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Dick Cavett's lineup of stellar guests includes funny man Rob Reiner, naturalist Jim Fowler with some of his unusual animals, nuclear physics expert Herman Kahn, Governor and Mrs. George Wallace of Alabama, comedian Sandy Duncan, singer Sarah Vaughan, and anthropologist Colin Turnbull. Meet them all on the Dick Cavett Show next week on ABC.
Now here's Anthony Holland with a review of last night's opera at Madison Square Garden. Tony?
Oh, thank you, Andrew. Thank you. The cultural world of New York was given a jolt last night from the Metropolitan Opera Company's benefit performance of Carmen. Problems began yesterday afternoon when maintenance workers at the arena went on strike following the hockey game between the Rangers and the Chicago Blackhawks. This meant that the opera would have to be performed on ice or not at all. Well, after considerable deliberation and the grand show business tradition, the members of the company decided to go ahead. Well, the first sign of trouble came during the opening solo when Carmen hit a high C, slipped and skidded 35 feet into the visiting Blackhawks net. A short time later, Anthony Gelfusco, the new Italian tenor, playing Don Jose, Carmen's lover, during the chase scene, started too fast and slammed Carmen into the boards with a vicious body check, breaking 3 fingers on her left hand. Gelfusco ended up singing the famous Flower aria from the penalty box. Well, numerous injuries occurred in the second act when the gypsy chorus collided with the Spanish militia near the center face-off circle, crying hysterically. It was really pathetic. 3 sopranos and 2 altos slid completely off the ice, down 2 flights of stairs and landed in the Rangers' locker room. Amid the chaos, one gypsy was seen kneeling just inside the blue line, clutching his broken tambourine. The worst indignity, however, was suffered by Carmen's lover, Escamillo, a bullfighter. While singing his Toreador song, he was hit from behind by Rico Rizzo and his huge Zamboni ice-making machine. It seemed that Mr. Rizzo didn't believe in strikes and reported to work as usual. Well, after the performance, the entire cast was taken to St. Teresa's Hospital for medical treatment. Actually, I don't like Carmen very much. I'm very tired of it. It was perhaps the most interesting performance I've seen.
Well, tell me, Tony, what was the score of that opera?
Well, I think it was 3 sopranos and 2 baritons.
Now, Bob and Ray sportscaster Biff Burns is in New York right now to find out some interesting things about a not-too-well-known sports record.
Hi, sports fans. This is Biff Burns with more highlights and sidelights from the world of sports. My guest on this edition is a man whose name has been popping up in the headlines of the sports pages, a fellow who really needs no introduction, Skip Moxford.
Well, thanks very much, Biff. But I think I may be a fellow who does need an introduction. It seems like wherever I go, nobody's heard of me.
Well, that's a little bit of inside dope we find awfully hard to believe, Skip. After all, it's not every day in the week that a fella keeps the yo-yo going 42 hours and 26 minutes nonstop.
Well, of course, it took me almost 2 days in the week to set the record, Biff. Probably because that's about how long 42 hours and 26 minutes turn out to be.
To keep a yo-yo in motion for 42 hours, you got to figure on almost 2 days to do it. Is that right, Skip?
That's right, Biff. Of course, my record of 624,818 round trips might be equaled in less time by somebody who yo-yoed faster, but I was really going for endurance, rather than speed.
Now, I understand you were getting pretty logy near the end there.
Well, I was getting pretty logy near the end there, Biff. Just watching a yo-yo go up and down that many times makes you kind of dizzy.
Sure.
And naturally, I was afraid to try any tricks like, walking the dog to break the monotony. I was afraid I'd lose control of the yo-yo.
Well, there's another hot tip for you yo-yo aficionados from the champ himself. An endurance run is no place for showboating, eh, Skip?
Well, it brings the crowd to its feet and all that, Biff. But after 12 or 14 hours, you start getting punchy, and it's safer to stick with the, the proven up and down yo.
Yeah, I know you did get pretty punchy yourself during that record run, didn't you?
Yeah.
I'm wondering what prompted you to absorb all that punishment. I understand you weren't paid anything for posting the new mark.
No, I wasn't paid anything for posting the new mark, Biff. I guess I was just driven by the same motive that inspires mountain climbers.
Probably.
They'll tell you that they had to conquer a certain peak just because it was there. Well, with me, my yo-yo was there, and I just had to keep it going 42 hours and 26 minutes.
Truly the story of a great athlete who scaled the heights because he was all heart.
Well, that's the way I like to think of it, Biff. Of course, my friends and relatives just figure I'm a complete nut. a man my age playing with a yo-yo for 42 hours and then starting to cry, you know, when he has to quit because the string breaks. But, you know, what people around to say in a situation like
Sure, but obviously you haven't let public opinion prevent you from basking in the limelight during your moment of glory.
No, it's been a private opinion more than public that's taken the edge off the thing for me, Biff. My friends started denying they knew me after 6 hours of my record run. And by the time I was halfway through the 34th hour, my wife had packed and left, so now I'm completely alone.
And free to make a new assault on your own record with a stronger piece of string and the best yo-yo available, right, Skip?
Well, I'm free to make an assault on the record any time I want to, Biff, but there's already a move underway to have me committed. And my lawyers advise me to stay away from yo-yos completely.
Well, your retirement will make the sports world a sadder and emptier place, Skip. But I'm sure that your accomplishments will be remembered for a long time to come.
Well, that's what my lawyers are afraid of.
That's it for sports for this time, fans. This is Biff Burns saying until next time, this is Biff Burns saying so long.
We'll be right back after these brief commercial messages.
All he wanted was his father's attention. He finally found a way to get it.
Unit 4, check out bypass area for illegal entry.
Time to Run, in color, from Worldwide Pictures. Somehow, it could be everyone's story.
Limited premiere engagement now showing citywide.
Hi, Mom. Anything I can do to help with dinner?
You can cook it.
Well, what can I cook that Dad and the boys would like?
Hamburger helper, what I was planning. There are lots of flavors and it's easy to make. Just remember, all you need is 1 pan, 1 pound of hamburger, and 1 package of hamburger helper.
For one happy family.
This tastes great, Julie.
Dinner with hamburger helper is one of my specialties.
It's nice to have you and hamburger helper in the kitchen.
My kids live in meat and potatoes country. And you know who knows it? Swanson. Look, a Swanson frozen entree. Just meat and potatoes, and good. Beefy meatballs with whipped potatoes, or Salisbury steak with French fries, or great fried chicken. For your meat and potatoes, gang. You can't beat these Swanson entrees. Just meat and potatoes, and good.
It's the next best thing to your good cooking. Swanson makes it good.
Here's NASCAR champion Richard Petty on the track in your kind of car. He's going to open your eyes to a real danger, reflected glare. Now watch. These are Coolray Polaroid sunglasses with the famous Polaroid lens that kills reflected glare and lets you see. When a pro says,
"You'll never see me driving without them,"
shouldn't you listen? Coolray Polaroid sunglasses in over 100 styles and flip-ups for prescription glasses.
Comedy news will still probably continue after station identification.
With the PDQ Bach cycle about to open at Symphony Hall, here is Professor Peter Schickley, who will provide us with all the background material that will make tomorrow's concert that much more enjoyable.
Germany has given us some of the world's greatest composers, Beethoven, Mozart, Brahms. But the more I discover of the music of PDQ Bach, the more obvious it becomes that Germany also gave us the world's worst composer. My forthcoming book, entitled PDQ Bach, Can It Happen Here?, brings to light the little we know about this man who has been called a wrong note in the symphony of history. It is the result of years of painstaking research done by myself and my students at the University of Southern North Dakota at Hoople, where I give a seminar in a concept essential to any true understanding of the music of PDQ Bach, the concept of accidental originality. I'd like to share with you some of the high points of our discoveries so far. This is the University of Southern North Dakota at Hoople. This is the main building, actually. The administration building is over on the North 40. One of the first things that we tried to do in our research was to find out what P.D.Q. Bach actually looked like. Try to find a likeness or a portrait. Now, according to a notation on the back of this picture, one of these people is P.D.Q. Bach. But P.D.Q. Bach scholars have been arguing for years about which one it is. Both of us agree that it cannot be the violinist here. P.D.Q. Bach would not be outraged by the cacophony of street sounds, since much of his music very closely resembled the cacophony of street sounds. It cannot be this man, for P.D.Q. Bach, as far as we know, did not play the oboe. He played the piano and the horses, but not the oboe. This little boy here seems to be playing the drum and singing simultaneously, a feat of coordination obviously far beyond the powers of P.D.Q. Bach. That leaves the only possible candidate in this picture, this little fellow here who is watering the plants. Little girl next to him is obviously very impressed. Perhaps the last person in P.D.Q. Bach's life ever to be impressed by him. Here is one of P.D.Q. Bach's musical soirees. You see some of his musical drinking friends. This is Thomas Collins, one of his favorite drinking companions and Germany's foremost virtuoso on the bagpipe. P.D.Q. Bach can be seen here at the bottom of the picture. You can just see his arm and his leg there. He's, the rest of him is under the table there, which is where he did most of his work. Here we have a page from P.D.Q. Bach's sketchbook. This shows not only the beginning of the cantata Iphigenia in Brooklyn and various themes that he threw away as not being worth working on. Da 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 dee da 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 dee da dee da da. But mostly, as you can see, has a little chart here reminding himself the different key signatures. He practices writing his name here. He has the names of various girls and their addresses and the best time to visit them. A little picture here of his brother, J.C. Bach, who's not on too friendly terms with him. A grocery list here. A tic-tac-toe game at which he cheats shamelessly. In general, a page like this definitely proves that even if it's true, as some authorities claim, that P.D.Q. Bach did indeed have a mind, he certainly couldn't keep it on his work. Now, we know that P.D.Q. Bach didn't have much difficulty in writing his music because he really didn't care particularly how it sounded. But he did sometimes have trouble writing it down. This is an early attempt of P.D.Q. Bach to engrave one of his own pieces. And it's obvious that the technical aspects of musical engraving were as foreign to him as the technical aspects of musical composition. As he grew older, he became very frugal and penny-pinching, and in the last few days of his life, he attempted to write an entire piano sonata on one page of music paper. This is certainly one of the most remarkable musical manuscripts that I have ever seen, and I feel very grateful that the P.D.Q. Bach Museum at the University of Southern North Dakota at Hoople has this manuscript. I'd like to try to play this for you since it is such a unique work.
And we're going to return after these messages and return.
Get the grapefruit juice, grin a smile. You're never without because you wear it within.
A fresh, happy taste from Florida. Rich in natural vitamin C, low in calories. A nutritious way to help you shape up.
Get the grapefruit juice, grin a smile. You're never without because you wear it within.
Don't just wear a smile, put one in. Drink grapefruit juice from Florida.
I like Jack in the Box tacos because they make a lot of noise. I like Jack in the Box tacos because he likes Jack in the Box tacos.
I like Jack in the Box tacos because I get so tired of making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
I like Jack in the Box tacos because they're there.
There are a lot of good things to like about Jack in the Box. One of them is a fantastic taco.
Ooh, those charter flights. Some coffee, honey?
Yeah. Half a cup. How about a little more?
Hey, you know we're cutting down on caffeine.
Caffeine. They can fly coast to coast in 4 hours. Can't they make a coffee I like without caffeine?
They will. They will.
Consider it done. New Brim decaffeinated coffee is deliciously rich. You can drink all you want and enjoy it.
This Brim is some fun.
You sure it's decaffeinated?
Would I kid you, Captain?
Super party.
Sure, you had a great time. You danced all night with David and Philip and Jordan and Monty. Little Miss Twinkletoes, you really...
She conked out, but her hair held up. What keeps her hair looking great? Clairol's Final Net. Final Net isn't an aerosol hairspray. Final Net is like an invisible hairnet that holds your hair beautifully, 3 times longer than the leading hairspray. Final Net holds up longer than you do.
Don't think I'm insecure.
Tonight, a change of pace on Off the Cuff. We have authoress Gail Parent and, of course, our Morals and Manner editor, Joan Rivers, and our own Fanny Flagg and Marion Mercer. Now, Miss Parent, you've written a book called Mandatory Marriage. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Simply put, what is it about?
Well, it is my theory. I call it MM.
MM?
Yes, for mandatory marriage, like USA is United States of America.
Oh, yes.
Excuse me, the title fascinates me, Mandatory Marriage. Now, is this is it a book about ladies, excuse the expression, that have to get married?
No. It would be a federal law established by the government saying that everyone had to be married by 21, whether they were pregnant or not.
Excuse me. Excuse me, I think we could just clear up something here. I would like a definition of the word mandatory. Does that have to do with men?
No. It means you have to get married unless you can prove that marriage can do you bodily harm.
Joan, I think
before
that, I should think.
Oh, yes. I have many friends in the gay community.
Yes, we know that, Joan.
Yes. For an example now, where would that leave him besides doing people's hair?
Well, we have taken care of the homosexual. All they have to do is go down to their marriage bureau and pick up a puce form and write a puce form.
Could we have a definition of puce? I don't...
It's a pink sort of color that homosexuals even like.
Puce is the color of a flea's wing, I think.
That's very poetic.
Puce
is the color of my true love here.
Puce means flea.
Yes, excuse me. I think Joan's interested because she has some friends she wants to find out. Well, I just am not speaking as a member of the gay community, but as I said, many friends of mine in and out of closets want to know,
we will find them a mate also. We're just not going to ignore them.
No, we're just saying everybody should be married.
Yes.
No matter what their faith, dominion.
Yes, this will help a lot of people in this country.
How?
Well, caterers, for example. When you think of all those marriages, one can only think of all those weddings close behind.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's...
Well, now, what if you do get married and you find that you don't particularly care for the person that the government, I suppose, has picked out for you?
What's so unusual about that?
Well, if you don't care for the... Well, is the divorce, can you get a divorce?
After 25 years, on your silver anniversary. Yes, it's very fair. And then you only have to see your wife on Tuesday nights and 1 week during the summer.
But who decides to get married? I mean, is there a choice, or is it just computerized?
Well, no, there'll be a bureau in Washington headed by a very nice woman called Ruth Klein, who seems to know who people should marry. she's married, and a lot of people have made mistakes. I put my faith in Ruth.
Yes,
Are you married yourself, Mrs. Parent?
No, I'm not.
That's Miss Parent.
Yes,
and Miss.
Yes, no, I'm not married.
Well, now, the thing that strikes me right off was the fact that we're having so many problems with overpopulation, and this would seem to encourage the birth of many children. I mean,
I don't think that's necessarily true.
No, the government can't take care of everything. You know, if they find somebody a mate, and then we'll see what happens.
Also, the divorce rate is up. It seems to me you'd have more divorces than if you had mandatory marriage.
Well, it's not working so well now. Let's try it with the government.
No, Gail mentioned that you have to stay married for 25 years.
Well, that's mandatory, and then...
Right. Or move to Canada or Sweden or do one of those things. Be jailed.
Well, is fooling around completely out if you don't particularly like your...
Now, I think the government would be stepping in too far to take care of any of those problems.
So in other words, if you do have a marriage that is not a working marriage, you can work out an arrangement among your husband and yourself and fool around.
Right. Well, a lot of people feel that my proposal doesn't leave people the choice or the freedom.
Yes.
But this is not true. They still have the choice of whether to live in a colonial or a split level. They can pick out the color carpeting they want, Corningware or Tupperware.
Right.
Where's the basics?
May I ask you, where did you get this idea from? It's a fascinating idea.
Well, you know, Richard Bach wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and he always says that there was a voice behind him that kept saying, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Well, the same thing happened to me. There was a voice behind me that said, mandatory marriage, mandatory marriage.
That must have been very disturbing.
Yes, I looked behind, and it was my mother. Dressed as a seagull.
Well, where does love fit into this?
It doesn't. It doesn't.
No love at all.
Sure. Try to punch holes in my theory.
No, it'll be good for business, won't it?
I just think love is
a lot of
fun.
Well, may I ask, is the book selling? Is it doing well?
Well, so far we've sold 6 copies. I dedicated it to the King family, and in the hopes that each buy one.
That might do
We're
it.
working on that.
Personally, I enjoyed your cauliflower recipes throughout the book. That I think that even if people don't agree with it...
So off the cuff, you learn many things, and we hope you'll be enjoying us for our next segment of Off the Cuff. Thank you. Good night. It was lovely.
Transportation for guests on tonight's comedy news show is provided through the courtesy of Wheatfield Airlines, the airline that takes off from a colorful 2-acre farm. The Wheatfield Bi-Star is made of the strongest wood available and manned by our pilot, an Olympic bicycle champion who will pedal you into the air. Wheatfield has flown over 87 miles without a single passenger nosebleed. And remember, your luggage is guaranteed to be delivered within 3 weeks of landing.
Well, that's the news, the whole news, and nothing but the news for tonight. I'm Andrew Duncan, and on behalf of the ABC Comedy News Department, I bid you good evening, good luck, good cheer, good night, good news, and goodbye. Hotel accommodations for the comedy news provided by the Continental Hyatt House, Hollywood's finest hotel, located on famed Sunset Strip in the heart of the entertainment and restaurant capital. Other members of the comedy news team are R.G. Brown, Richard Dawson, Rudy DeLuca, Stephanie Edwards, Ronnie Graham, Bo Caprell, Charles Knapp, Barry Levinson, Mark London, Pat McCormick, Don Novello, Dick Shaw, April Tatro, Carmen Zapata. Portions of the preceding program have been omitted because of bad taste.